Welcome, everybody. It is some of you might be going, another episode? How many of these are enough, Kyle? You've done like 250 of them. We're just going to keep going until all of my hairs that I have left are gray. A few more wrinkles. Who knows how long we'll be doing this for? And hopefully you'll continue to listen because you are getting some value and continued encouragement and clarity and motivation on how to run your remodeling business successfully and to be a remodeler on the rise. And today I have a guest named Eric Fortenberry. He is the founder and CEO of JobTread. Some of you may have heard of him. He's a passionate entrepreneur, founded JobTread. It is a construction and remodeling estimating and project management software. He's down in Texas. You don't have much of a Texas drawl, though.
I guess it depends on how you hear me.
How many cowboy hats or cowboy boots do you own?
I do not have any cowboy hats. I was given one pair of cowboy boots as a gift that I admittedly have not actually worn out.
If you're around a size 11.5 shoe, if you could mail those to me, because supposedly next Thursday I'm going to a Zach Bryan concert with my sweet 16-year-old daughter.
Nice.
And she is talking about me needing to look the part. Evidently, this like golf polo shirt might not look the parts. Have your people send that to my people if you would.
Will do.
Mostly. Today we're going to spend a little time in particular talking about everyone's favorite topic, or at least what we want you to do is to like it more, to realize the importance of it, to realize the impact of it on your overall remodeling business. And that topic is estimating. Eric, give a little bit more of an intro of who you are so people know. And then talk to me about, from your vantage point of having worked in a remodeling business and led that remodeling business, and then starting JobTread and seeing hundreds of clients really dig into estimating, produce, and then talk about the importance of estimating in a remodeler's overall business.
Sure. Yeah. Appreciate you having me on, Kyle. So,
You bet.
I built JobTread out of a needs basis when I took over a buddy of mine's construction company, and it was in 2018. And, one of the challenges that I saw they were having was really just being able to quickly and accurately estimate their jobs. And so, what I did is I went and I started shadowing all of the estimators, the salespeople, trying to understand how were they coming up with their numbers? How did they, figure out what went into the job? How are they coming up with the price? And, it's very, very interesting, like it kind of going into it, because I knew that we were struggling to hit our target profit margin. And, back at that time, we were shooting for a 30% profit margin, but we were just like all over the map. Like it was like a total crapshoot. I was like, you guys might as well go to Vegas and roll the dice. Like you just have no idea how you're going to perform. And, I found that issue really started with how they were doing the estimating. And so, as I suspected, when I started shadowing the guys, some of them were just totally pulling numbers out of thin air, just making things up. They said that they leveraged their 20 or 30 years of experience and just sort of knew what things cost. And I was like, all right, well, that's great, but you just sold some job at some number that you came up with, and now you're expecting a project manager to go and get that 30% profit margin.
Yeah.
Like again, this is kind of chaotic in my opinion. And so, what I also saw though, and I found early on, is that they were using markup instead of margin to calculate the price.
Classic.
Yeah, very, very classic. The one guy, the owner, who really actually understood the difference, he was using margin, to come up with this price. But, again, a 30% markup is only going to get you a 23% profit margin. And so, just right out of the gate, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And so that's where I realized, like, and really what became the core of JobTread is the budget builder. And so I said, look, guys, here's a new tool. I want you to spend your time figuring out every single cost that's going to go into this job, whether it be, your materials, your labor, any equipment, do we need permits, like everything. I want you to have them entered into this budget and focus on making sure that we get the accurate cost. And then we will automatically calculate the price based on our target profit margin. And so, when we made this transition, I mean, this is one of the, I'd say kind of one of a few like really major, pivotal moments for us that like helped us to start having much more accurate estimates built. And the other interesting thing that happened when we did this, I mean, not only did we start pricing our jobs more accurately, but like we also, because we spent time focusing on documenting everything, our scopes of work started, becoming much more clear. Like we got a lot more transparency with the customer. We could actually now be on the same page about what was included and what was not included. Like we couldn't even use change orders because nobody knew what was included and what was agreed upon. And so again, like having this big transition to spending more time having much more detailed estimates, that helped us just throughout the rest of the job life cycle. And so, I mean, at the end of that, I had agreed to take over my buddy's company. I took over as CEO, gave him 1 year, and we grew the business from 5 to 8 million in sales that year. We increased our gross profit by 43%. And it was after that in 2019 that I was like, all right, this is too good to leave sitting here with you guys. That's when I recruited some of my developers and designers from my last company, and they rebuilt it, set us up to be able to start selling this to many more construction companies. And since then, we've taken it to over 3,400 customers all over the world, primarily in the United States, but Canada, and yeah, we've been helping builders, and we see firsthand the impact of having systems and processes and tools, to help them much more accurately and quickly, do their estimates. It makes a tremendous impact on the business.
Yeah. And as you're telling that story of the estimating side, yes, once we have all of our actual better thought out costs in there, and yes, after we put on the proper markup or margin that we need in order to pay our overhead expenses and to kick out a solid net profit, you hinted at some of the other benefits, which are, holy cow, our change orders were not evaporating from us because we're actually able to charge for those and collect those. Holy cow, once we handed this detailed estimate over into our production side, they can run the job easier and better and more clearly. There's fewer questions. It's less noisy. The phone's not ringing. The text isn't coming through. What about this? What about that? A detailed estimate helps aid in that. So I always like to think of a really solid estimate has a nice ripple effect through so many areas of your business, not only financial, but production, change orders, et cetera. So what are some of the best practices, if you were to whittle it down to a handful, when it comes to estimating? If I am looking to be an estimator on the rise, see what I did there?
Yeah.
What are some of those best practices, Eric?
I'd say, making sure that you understand, how do you want you and your team to generate these estimates, like having a uniform, consistent format for this. And ultimately where I'll go with that is that, the importance of creating templates. So, again, every job will be unique in and of itself, but like having a starting point is a really great way to make sure that you have included all of those things that, are easy to forget. And if you forget them, they're going to end up coming out of your profit. Permits, for example. Look, not every job will need a permit, but it's better to have that in your template and remove it than to potentially forget it.
So you're saying everything that is possible in this kitchen project, in this bathroom project, which, by the way, that's probably 2 different templates, but everything possible in that kitchen project should be in your template. And it's a great estimating best practice to just remove something that's not relevant than to try to think and remember something that is.
Absolutely. I think templates are just a really great way, and again, you can have numerous templates. So yeah, your standard, bathroom, your kitchen, an addition, whatever they may be. Like it's better to start with everything and then remove the things that you don't need. And obviously you can add anything that, may not, you've never done before, or it's something, unique and special to this one customer. But like just having that starting point, I think it gives kind of the structure for building out your budget for the job. And so I'd say that's a great best practice for sure. And there's a lot of, again, there's a lot of different like strategies for coming up with, your cost estimates. I mean, I see people again who like to basically kind of take a similar job, look at historical, data and base the current project on that. I mean, that's one way to go about it. I see people who like to really get into formulas and come up with kind of measurement based, costing, where, maybe what your cost per square foot is, or per linear foot, or, per board, per cabinet, per whatever, like that's another great strategy. Understanding your production rates is very important, and knowing how long does it take you to install, X, Y, or Z. And then I also see, again, a lot of people like to really get into the details and do a full-blown material takeoff, using, on-screen takeoff tools, where you're figuring out exactly, kind of every single dimension up front. Some people like to do, and figure out every single selection and every option, which again, that can be a great strategy, a great way to do it. Now, I also see other people who, they don't want to get hung up on every detail before they get into, the process with the customer, kind of get them a little bit more committed. And so in that regard, that's where they may, want to have, some sort of a consultation fee or design fee, a proposal fee, whatever you want to call it, kind of getting that initial, signature, getting the customer to commit to you and to move forward and paying something. I know some people like it, some people don't. Again, it's just a different strategy, but understanding kind of what your sales process is going to look like and how do you want to keep progressing, the deal and really get more and more buy-in along the way, I think is a great way to just make sure that like you're not going to go and spend, hours and hours kind of building everything out, and then have the customer, but actually we went with this other guy. I think there's a lot of ways that like you got to kind of balance, how much time do you want to invest before you get a commitment from that customer. The whole selection thing too. I mean, this is where like, again, you see a lot of home builders and people where they're using allowances as like a placeholder saying, look, our standard, our standard, fixtures might, be X, and so we're going to set that in there. Now, if you want to upgrade, awesome, no problem. We can, when we get into looking at all the different fixtures or all the appliances or the different, kind of materials, whatever it may be, like you can sort of punt that till later, but you've still given the customer a good feel for what this project will cost them. Because I find that to be the number one thing. And actually, like today, I actually just signed for a pool. And like what I wanted to know was like kind of what is that range? Like I want to have a really good understanding of like, if I don't add on anything, what is this going to cost me base?
If my wife chances are you are, but
when my wife gets her way, she's going to obviously want to add all the optional upgrades. And so what is my worst case? And that helps me make sort of, feel a lot more comfortable when I've got kind of this bracketed, budget for the project. So I think all of those are kind of good strategies there.
Yeah. And you hinted at the, design and project development, kind of charging for that. Especially talking to remodelers doing kitchens, baths, additions. I'm a big proponent of that. Our VIP club, if you're part of our VIP club, we have some great trainings around how to do that, how to charge for design and development. If you go to remodelersuntherise.com, you can see all about it. Cool. So best practice, you really leaned into templates. And the other thing you really leaned into there is, what is your process? What is your step-by-step process? Have you decided on that? And have you continued to hone that and follow that? Any other best practices when you're thinking of kind of estimating side of things? Anything else that comes to mind for that?
Well, I think, and we may touch on this later, but like, the importance of doing the job costing along the way, so that at the end of every job, you can analyze how did you come in, your estimate versus your actual. I think it's so important. I see so many, builders and contractors out there that don't take the time to analyze their performance and then go and make sure that you update back in your templates. Like kind of, if you see that you were wildly off on something, then you need to make a change. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over. Like you have to, use that data and that performance to make sure that you're constantly improving and updating yourself. And so, again, I'd say just taking that time to do that is very important.
You're telling me job costing makes you a better estimator?
100%.
Because yes, so the idea of estimating best practice, I need to be able to see. It's called an estimate, folks. It's called an estimate for a reason. Now we zero in on it. We try to make it as foolproof as possible. We try to not have any slippage in it where it costs more than what we were thinking. But job costing is the thing that can really unlock your accuracy when it comes to estimating. When you don't look at, let's just use the demo phase, and you put a certain number of hours and you have some materials related to that. If you don't look at what the actual was in labor hours and materials for the demo phase, you might be close, you might be accurate. You might also be flushing 150, 175, 234, $75 down the drain consistently. And one thing you mentioned there that I think is so exciting about job costing and then updating your estimates is all of a sudden when you do finally see something you've been missing or something you've been bidding too low, when you fix that, not only are you fixing that for the next one, but it's also for the next and next and next. By job costing, it can literally save you thousands and thousands and tens of thousands over time because you are becoming a better estimator. So job costing and paying close attention to your estimated versus your actual is so important. If you can give a little plug for JobTread. Is JobTread any good at that, Eric, by the way?
I would say that's our bread and butter.
That is kind of your bread and butter.
You know, I think though another strategy, you know, is using bid requests. So, you know, obviously if you have your own internal employees that are doing the work, you know, then you got to be really good at being able to estimate their hours. And that's where, you know, understanding their production rates and how long it takes them to do certain tasks is very important. But if you're going to use trade partners, then I think it's really, really important that, you know, all of the key, you know, kind of key components of any given job, whether it's the labor or it's the material, you know, using bid requests to collect those real-time price updates as you're building out your budget, you know, like there's no reason to not, you know, check with your subs, check with your suppliers, like make sure that like you have as best as you can gotten a fixed price that you can lock in there. And so again, if you're going to send out, you know, one of your trade partners to go do all the demo, you know, whether you send them the plans, whether you have them go out there, you know, you want to try to collect a fixed price bid from them that you can lock into your budget, add your margin. Then when you win the job, great, give them what they bid for the job and have them go do the work. Now, again, if there was something unforeseen, like, you know, that you can't necessarily get a change order for, you don't, you know, whatever it may be, if they misbid the job, like that's on them. You know, that was their mistake.
The risk is moved from you to them on that.
Exactly. So I think to the extent that you can lock in all of your costs, you know, that is a great, you know, thing to do ahead of time. Don't get into the job and then, you know, oh, well, let me go get a quote for this. Like you should have already done that up front, at least for all of your key cost drivers.
And that's also where charging for design and development really helps. When you give somebody a ballpark range and then you say, hey, in this next phase, we can get into, yes, all the design details, but there's a lot of scope of work, having a trade day, getting detailed proposals from my trades, going through and making the selections. We want to have everything selected up front so that this project stays on budget and it stays on schedule. And this experience is just so much smoother for you. So charging is usually a gateway to being able to do that. Now, Eric, you're kind of like me in some ways, where do you sometimes multitask and do you like to get a lot of things done in any given day?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I think you're like that. I'm reading a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry right now, and I'm 80% of the way through it. And it's made me think quite a bit, even to the point where I was walking from my car to my office the other day, and I typically have just a quick pace about me because there's things to do. And I actually just slowed down and walked a little slower. I may have lost 2 seconds, but I also noticed the beautiful sky. And I also just kind of relaxed a little bit. So I share that. Well, with that said, there's a good balance between speed and being in too much of a hurry. My question is around, how do we speed up? How do we speed up estimating? So we want to keep it detailed. We want to make sure we're setting our production department up for success. We want to make sure that we're protecting our gross profit margins. But what are some ways that we can continue to speed up our estimating? This is a big bottleneck for a lot of folks.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's where it goes to having, you know, systems and processes that you can follow, you know, consistently, repeatably, you know, having templates, you know, knowing your numbers, you know, to the extent that you can leverage, you know, formulas and parameters and like make sure that you're collecting all of the right data the first time and then inputting it and having that automatically calculate your material takeoff or calculate, you know, your production rates. Like just having those, you know, set up already is what's going to help you to be able to turn that estimate around much quicker without having to sacrifice, you know, the accuracy of it. You know, again, when I think that, you know, you need to go get something priced out, take that time. It's better to take a little bit longer to make sure that you've got an accurate, you know, cost for every single thing that's going in than to just try to rush it out there and say, oh, I'll just make it up later. Or, you know, maybe I'll be a little bit, you know, kind of plus and minuses here and there. Like, I think it's worth taking that extra time. But like the number one thing that I see, you know, is contractors go out there and they don't follow up. You know, and these are probably most likely the ones not using JobTread or some other system, but like, you know, just people, when you're not organized and you're not tracking all of your leads through a funnel, through a process, making sure that you're following up, you know, that's so important. You know, I did a Builder Stories interview the other day with a guy who basically said one of the biggest things that he did that he implemented at the beginning of this year that's made a tremendous impact was every single time he goes out on site with a customer, he schedules that follow-up appointment. And it's usually, he said, you know, 1 to 2 weeks out, but that now sets his deadline. That gives him a deadline that he has to make sure that he has completely, gathered all the information he needs to be able to come back and walk through a very detailed proposal for that customer. And, again, I think it's all about making sure that you get the estimates turned around and don't just put it off. Like, this is the lifeblood of your company. You got all these leads coming in, like you need to be able to deliver that proposal and give the customer the ability to move forward with you. If you're not doing it, it's all for nothing.
Yeah. What you're talking about there, if I can speed up my estimating by making and getting a self-imposed deadline. We all work better off of deadlines. That was kind of the example you were using. Eric just mentioned Builder Stories. That's his podcast. You should look at it. It's a nice little weekly podcast. I mean, I don't know what would be a better way to start or end your day than a little Remodelers on the Rise podcast sprinkled with a little Builder Stories. I don't know how life could get better. A couple other things related to the kind of the speed of estimating that came to mind as you were sharing. One thing we have to look at is just our overall estimating capacity. I think so often we're like, man, why am I not getting my estimating detailed? You're not putting enough resources towards it. We see it out in the field more openly, where we're like, I can't start another project right now. There's only so many hours that I could be actually producing out there. Take that same thought that is really clear to you and apply that to your estimating. No duh, you're always last minute. No duh, you're always late. No duh, it's not as detailed as you want. You're trying to do 150% of the work in the 100% that you have. Look hard at your capacity. There might be somebody already on your team that could assist with estimating. They could follow up with your trade partners. They could go and get the numbers. They could help develop a little scope of work. I have a lot of clients that are hiring part-time selections coordinators. It's an excellent role to get into the details, to finalize the selections. You don't have to do it all on your own, and there's ways to kind of take a quarter step or a half step forward and either give a little bit of that to somebody on your team or find a little part-time person. The other thing I would want to mention is it's very easy for you guys to put on your production hats, to put on your sales hat. Sometimes when I say, hey, you have to put on your marketing hat, you get that. And yeah, I do need to market more. But we also need to put on our estimating hat more often. We need to take this thing seriously. And it starts by getting things out of your head. Okay, I can't teach estimating because it's just all that stuff's in my head. Cool. / how's that working for you? / let's start getting something out of it. Let's start just with that little permit section. What is everything that we need to think about related to that? Let's talk about the demo phase. What is all the little things we need to think about there? You can do this. You can create the template. You can create the system, but you got to want to do it. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. And for some of you, getting your estimating out of your head and into a system is your elephant. Attack that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Cool.
again, like you said it earlier, it's like, when people are trying to wear all the hats, when you get deep into a project and you're managing that project and you stop thinking about, what's the next project? That's the time when you need to be making sure that your marketing is fully running.
Yeah.
You're estimating that you're getting those things out so that next month and the month after that and the month after that, you've got, that deal flow that's coming in. Like if you wait till the end of this project to now go and try to win some more estimates and get some more jobs, like again, you're going to have a gap. And that's why you got to have these things running in parallel. And, at some point, like again, as much as I love wearing every hat and I think I can do it the best, like you got to build a team. And, at the right point in kind of your financial history and performance, it'll make sense to start bringing on more people that can help you, accomplish those goals to make sure that you are continuing to fulfill, all of your marketing, all of your estimating, all of your project management.
I like it. So two things as we kind of wrap this nice, tidy, hopefully helpful, hopefully reminder, motivating, encouraging podcast episode. Number one, what else related to estimating going around in your fertile mind up there? What other pointers or reminders or tips related to estimating come to mind? And then talk specifically related to JobTread and your estimating system, and maybe just shed a little light on how it works and why people should take a look at it.
Well, the first thing, since you asked what comes to mind, I mean, it's one thing to be able to deliver the estimate, but I think, again, thinking about the entire process, people buy from people they like. People buy from people who they feel comfortable with, who are easy to work with, who communicate, who are professional. So I think you got to think about the whole presentation. It's not just, giving them a very clean, professional looking estimate, where they can go through and make their selections and sign. It's about the whole, it's about you. It's about your company, and it's about making sure that you are easy to work with, that you're following up, that you're responsive to their questions, their needs. Like, don't be that contractor who shows up and then never shows up again. He smelled like cigarettes, he had mud on his shoes. Like, be professional and be easy to work with, and that will win you the job more often than being the low cost provider. Again, we need everyone to be able to deliver high quality construction. And that's what's going to help elevate the industry as a whole. We don't need to keep kind of just being that low cost and trying to compete on price. Like, there's so many other ways that you can help a homeowner feel comfortable and excited to work with you, beyond just the estimate. Now, again, with JobTread, we do make this, very easy for you. We help you to be able to quickly turn those out. Again, you can provide a great customer experience in the estimating process, where they can have, the ability to kind of view as much detail as they want. You can, have pictures and integrated with your estimates, like showing them different options, giving them selections, allowing them to make their choices. What I found is that it's far better to get a potential customer trying to decide, should I go with, this type of flooring or this type of flooring, instead of, should I do this project or not? Or should I hire this contractor or that contractor? The goal is to get them into trying to make those, those decisions about, do I want this one or that one, instead of, am I going to do this or not? And so I think the more interactive, that proposal is, and the more kind of, sort of kind of, teasers and some kind of fun selections, like show them those things and those options, you now let them control the budget. You can give them the minimum, the maximum, and as they make their selections, it's refining that budget. And so again, maybe they choose all the top end things, and that's out of their budget. Instead of haggling you on price, it's like, well, look, maybe you need to go and downgrade a couple of those selections. Maybe, one of those things in particular isn't like as important, and we could go with that, that good option instead of the best option.
You realize your wife is going to pick all of the pool options, right?
I do.
Okay.
But I think we now have, we're now thinking about how much we're comfortable spending, instead of, are we going to, move forward with this or not? And so I think that's where, again, that interactive proposal is a really great tool. And again, just, helping them feel part of the process, feel part of the decision making. That's just so much better than someone just coming back and saying, here's the cost, and it is what it is, and like not, being able to give much detail or shed anything else on it.
Cool. I like that angle. Excellent. Well, I feel like we sparked
one other thing I do want to also
please
bring up is that, because I think, I see a lot of people talk about this in the remodels community. I mean, it's, at what level of detail. I'm not a big proponent of giving a breakdown of every single, your labor, your material, and so with JobTread, it's really neat that you get to control how much detail you provide. If you want to give kind of the budget, by trade, or by, cost code, or by room, you can do that. But as much or as little detail as you want to provide, because sometimes when you give too much detail, now they're like, oh, well, I could go get that, can of paint from Home Depot for cheaper. And you just open up this can of worms. So I'm not a big proponent, but I do think for some people, it's about your comfort level and how much, breakdown of the cost you want to provide.
And the flexibility that JobTread's estimating platform has is solid.
Yeah.
Cool. And I think the other biggie is just being able to convert that estimate into job costing, and doing the work of getting that system set up is such an unlock from being kind of sort of profitable and mediocre results in your remodeling business to really getting some top-notch, top-of-class results.
Yeah, I mean, it's neat because every you just sold, that is the same exact information that you're going to use for the job costing. You don't have to keep re-entering it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I will say we did get some really good feedback. We used to only be able to do job costing at kind of the line by line, level. We had a lot of people like, look, I want to estimate in extreme detail, item by item, but my job costing, I really want to do it more by cost code, just kind of logging all the expenses at the cost code level. Like, this is a plumbing expense, this is a, finish out, and so we have both of those modes now, where you can, estimate in a lot more detail, do the job costing at a little bit higher level. But at the end of the day, I think it's really, really important that people understand the importance of taking the time to do the job costing, because that's the only way that you're going to figure out where you're making money, where you're not, where you need to make changes. And, the only thing that really matters here is the profit that comes out of every single one of these jobs, as well as delivering a great, customer, experience.
Goes without saying, the customer experience.
But, yeah. For you as a contractor to build a scalable and successful business, you need to really have your job and your numbers dialed in so that you are selling a profitable service and you understand what it's going to take to do that on a repeatable scale.
Love it. Cool. Eric, that was a nice little dive into estimating. Thank you so much for that. If people want to reach out to you or your company, where would they go?
Yeah, I'd say, obviously I'm easy to find and connect with on all the social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, things like that. But, I'd say the best resource is just going to be our website, jobtread.com. We also have a ton, like hundreds of videos on our YouTube channel if you'd like to kind of get a little bit more information that way. But we're happy to connect with anyone. Right from our website, you can click schedule a demo. Our team will take the time to walk you through the product, show you exactly how it would work for you, make sure it's a good fit. And, or if you want to dive right in, you can directly sign up as well on the website. Every single person on our customer success team, though, has a tremendous amount of construction experience. We very much understand what you're going through, and we're here to help you along the way. Our goal is to help you build a more successful, more profitable business. And so definitely tap into our customer support team, all of our trainings, all of that information. It's all included with your JobTread subscription. So
cool.
Please do, feel free to tap into all of that.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sending me up those cowboy boots so I'm prepared for next week. And we'll talk again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.